And welcome back, everyone. Today we're on a short geological adventure. Alright, this is the first attempt at a 360 video as well. So feel free to take your mouse or your finger and as soon as you see us walking around, you should be able to look around in all directions. Enjoy. Let me know if you like it or not in the comments. The wind noise on the camera was quite strong, so I'm just going to walk us through this place. This is the north coast of Taiwan. And what you're standing in right now is one of the strangest geological landscapes on Earth. Yelieu Geopark. It's a sliver of land, barely 250 meters wide at the broadest. Sticks out 1.7 kilometers out into the East China Sea. And when you look at it from above, it looks like a giant turtle crawling into the water. And that's actually what the locals called it for centuries, the Yelieu turtle. So I'm going to answer how this place got here, what actually happened to these rocks, and something that most travel vlogs won't mention, what's happening just offshore right now in the waters between here and mainland China. Okay, let's start. 24 million years ago, just before my time, we have these rocks. See? It's basically layers of limestone, shale, and calcareous sandstone laid down on the floor of a shallow sea, one on top of the other, kind of like pages of a very slow book. Those layers contain fossil bodies, sea creatures and trace fossils, the cavities and burrow marks left behind the shallow water organisms that lived there, fed in the sediments. You can still see them if you know what you're looking for. Sand dollar fossils, sea urchins, little ghost impressions of things that died here like tens of millions of years before Taiwan even existed as an island. So about 6 million years ago, then two tectonic plates collided in the Philippine Sea Plate and the Eurasian Plate, and that slowly pushed Taiwan up out of the ocean. And as it did, it dragged up this narrow strip of seabed rock up with it, kind of exposing it to the sky for the first time. Now exposed, the rocks face a new enemy: the sea, the wind, the rain. And the rock wasn't uniform. It has hard spots and soft spots. The calcium-rich concentrations, there's dense, almost marble hard nodules scattered throughout softer sandstone. The soft stuff eroded, the hard concentrations stayed, and over thousands of years you got this. Mushroom rocks, officially called hoodoos, something that we've heard before here in the middle of Saskatchewan. There are some hoodoos over in Alberta. The scientific term is differential erosion. The top hard layer survives while the softer part below is eaten away by seawater, salt spray, and wind. The cap stays, the stem thins, and the result looks something like a sculpture. So the park itself divides into 3 zones, and each tells a different chapter of the same story. So zone 1 here, look what you're looking at, you've got the mushroom rocks, which is kind of the signature. If you look more carefully, though, you'll also see candle rocks. So those form differently. They're a hard center that sits atop, surrounded by circular grooves. And it's almost perfectly round, sitting on a pedestal of softer stone. The park says that they look like a candle in a holder. I think that might be a bit generous, but the geology's there. The rock strata at Yelieu actually has 3 distinct layers, and each one produces a different kind of landform. The top layer is 2 meters or so of this calcium-style sandstone. That's over tan sandstone. Kind of gives you a mushroom rock. The second layer, with its irregular nodules embedded in the same tan sandstone, erodes what they call ginger rock. Rough surfaced, knobby amber-colored lumps that kind of look exactly like ginger root. The third layer is the hardest concentration, gives you all of the candle rocks. So zone 2 is where it gets even weirder. Zone 2 is kind of called the tofu rocks. So the rock here was cut by 2 sets of almost perpendicular natural joints. Fracture lines in the stone The seawater flowed along those joints and eroded them wider. What's left is a grid of squared off blocks that genuinely looks like a tray of firm tofu has been set down on the seafloor. It's kind of striking. Even when I was there before I did this research, I was looking at it thinking, was this on purpose or not? It's so perfectly perpendicular that it's really hard to believe that this was just natural, but very interesting. Then there's Dragon Head Rock. One side looks like a dragon's head, the other side looks like a dog, and it's the same, differential weathering, creating irregular shapes. And our human pattern-seeking brains inevitably turns them into faces, and thus allows the officials to charge us $5 to see. So, Zone 3 is at the far end. There's some sea caves. There's an ecology reserve, and that's the Cape's north shore. And it meets the full force of the East China Sea. The waves here have carved deep grooves and faces and caves into the rock face. There's an observation deck at the very tip, but very few tourists actually go this far. I think you need to have a guide actually when you're going all the way out there. But if you do it, you will get a pretty much 360 view of the Pacific to the east and the Taiwan Strait to the west. This is the Queen's Head, Taiwan's most photographed rock. And I want to tell you something about it that the tourist brochures bury in the footnotes. So this rock is disappearing. It took roughly 4,000 years to form. In the early 1960s, it looked more like one of the classic mushroom rocks that are all over. Then a chunk fell down along a natural fracture line. A chunk fell off, and it suddenly had a profile. The graceful neck, upturned chin, swept back hair. People said it looked like the bust of Queen Elizabeth, and the name stuck. So it's known as the Queen's Head. But the neck keeps thinning. Every year, scientists have been tracking it with 3D scanning. Geologists say it could collapse at any time. A magnitude 3 earthquake, not even a big one, could do it. And there's a fissure documented in the rock as far back as 1969 that has never closed. So the park has installed protective coatings, built a stone barrier to stop visitors from touching it, and even laser scanned the formation to create replicas. When you see it, you're seeing a rock that is actively in its final chapter. There's another rock nearby called the Cute Princess. It's a younger mushroom rock nearby. It's already being positioned as her successor. Something else that most travel content skips, the name Yelieu isn't Taiwanese or Mandarin in its origin. It's actually Spanish. When the Spanish navigators were charting these northern waters back in the 1600s, they noted this headland and its treacherous undercurrents. It caused shipwrecks. They named it Punto Diablos, Devil's Cape. Over generations, locals who didn't speak Spanish phonetically adapted Diablos into Ialos, also became Yelieu in Taiwanese pronunciation, and eventually Mandarin romanization Yelieu. So the place that feels ancient and elemental has a name that quietly encodes centuries of colonial cartography. During the Japanese colonial period in the 1895 to 1945, it was actually when Yeliu's geology was first formally documented. The Japanese geologists surveyed the cape and recognized the formations for what they were. The park also has, still has old coastal sentry posts. Yelieu was a military restricted zone before it was a tourist attraction. Taiwan's north coast has been a strategic corridor for a long time. Mainland China, the People's Republic, is about 180 kilometers from this coastline. So close enough that the politics of that proximity are felt here every single day. In recent years, it's become one of the most closely watched bodies of water on the earth. Since 2022, the People's Liberation Army has conducted a series of large-scale military exercises around Taiwan. They've been escalating. In October 2024, the drills, codenamed Joint Sword 2024, surrounded the island on multiple sides, sea, air, and coast guard, simultaneously. In April of 2025, Straight Thunder involved at least 32 aircraft, multiple warships, crossing the Taiwan Strait median line, including an aircraft carrier. These exercises happened without warning. Then, in December 2025, just a few months ago, China launched what they called their single largest maritime deployment ever, codenamed Justice Mission. Over 90 ships, live fire drills, missiles fired into the contiguous zone, meaning 24 nautical miles off of Taiwan's shore. Some vessels closed within a few nautical miles of Taiwan's outlying islands. The exercises simulated blocking Taiwan's ports and cutting off its sea and air routes. And just a few days ago, the ministry detected 26 military aircraft around the island on Saturday, March 14th. So, 4 or 5 days ago, with 16 of them entering the northern, central, and southwestern air defense ID zone. 7 naval ships were spotted around the island as well, it reported. So standing here on this cape, with the strait just ahead of you, that's not an abstraction. Taiwan's military went on full alert. Civilian flights were rerouted. The island's population has lived with this for decades. And in the last few years, it's been tightening. The situation is unresolved and is active. That's everything for this one. Have a great day. And as always, choose your own adventure.